Hi, my name is Abiola Seriki-Ayeni, and I am an under 40 CEO.
The African Renaissance. The concept that the African people and nation shall overcome the current challenges confronting the continent and achieve cultural, scientific, and economic renewal is here, with young men and women taking the lead. Some call them the new school heroes. We call them under 40 CEOs.
Prior to her appointment as the Senior Special Assistant Education to the former Lagos State Governor, Mr. Akinwumi Ambode, Abiola worked as the Senior Manager, Teacher Effectiveness with the New York City Department of Education, Talent Management with Achievement, First Charter Schools, High School Teacher at Harmony Public Schools, Texas, and a Middle School Teacher through the New York City Teaching Fellows Program. She has also worked with NAPIMS, Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, Fort Oil, and Lagos State Ministry of Education. Now, let's fill in a quick gap in 2008.
Real quickly, tell me what were you up to between the years 2008 to 2009? Because there's no record of what you were up to at that time.
Yeah, having babies and moving, straddling between the US and Lagos. I did do a few consulting jobs here in Lagos where we would work with private schools and do teacher training and help them to build like their curriculum.
Especially key learning solutions.
Yes, key learning solutions. And the woman I worked with, it was a really great experience for me because I was able to see the possibilities for education in a private space as opposed to government space. So for me, it was kind of a labor of love where I was really able to notice my impact on individual teachers from the beginning when I started working with them, and then over the next maybe like 12 weeks when we would end, so just really seeing a shift in mindset, especially with teachers that especially have been teaching for many years and are very set in their ways about, I'm doing this and it's working. Don't come and bring anything new to me, and I think it was also great for me to also figure out, the adult learning. Adult learning is very different than student learning.
Okay. So would you say that this labor of love of yours was what you extended to Lagos State when you joined as an education specialist in 2012?
Yes, I would say I had, no idea that that government would be what it has turned out to be. From 2008, when I had started Harvard, obviously I was a full-time student, and I was there an extra year due to having my daughter. So at that point, when I had finished, I knew that we wanted to move back to Nigeria, but I didn't want to stay in the US. And I really started thinking about policy and government's importance when considering educational policy. So Lagos State was a natural thought process for me, but it's very different than the way in which government is run in the US. But government is government, wherever you go.
As an education advisor with over a decade of extensive management, program development, global partnerships, and community building experience in the United States and Nigeria, Abiola is skilled in program monitoring and evaluation, system, curriculum development, public-private partnerships, strategy, educational technology, and public speaking. Key programs include National Homegrown Meal a Day program, defeat programs, and state intervention programs such as Code Lagos and Ready, Set, Work. With her skill set, why did Abiola decide to stay in government rather than in the private developmental sector?
Amazing. So there's this quote by Paulo Freire which you seem to favor, where he says literacy is inherently a political project. Now, in a country where it seems would depend, on the private sector to elevate the quality of education, how does politics apply?
Well, that quotation by Paulo Freire has been my Northern Star in many ways because it speaks to the importance of education, not just to get a good job, not just to be literate, but for you to have a freedom of choice, right? And for you to live your best life, And a lot of times, in as much as education can be used to give people opportunity, sometimes it's a gatekeeper. True education is not just giving you a piece of paper that signifies you've completed the education. True education has influenced the way you think, right? You being able to think critically, you being able to problem solve, you being able to be creative, right? And, we see even when we look at the likes of, Mike Zuckerberg from Facebook, who people say didn't finish university, because the likes of him had such a strong foundation, even without that piece of paper, creativity, problem solving, critical thinking, all those things, ensure that he had a good education in essence, right? So in as much as it's great to focus on these terminal degrees and the completion of these milestones, we really need to make sure that as we're doing our service delivery for education, that we're thinking about where our children should be and what they should be able to do, regardless of the circumstances they find themselves in. So for instance, someone who's unable to find a job, can they think through becoming an entrepreneur? Can they figure out how to get funding for their business? Can they figure out some of the big problems that need to be solved? In order to ensure that education is inherently a political project, we need to focus on ensuring that children have agency over their lives, over their livelihood, and over whoever it is that they want to be. If it makes money or not, they're making a choice to do so.
Amazing. So let's fast forward to 2015. You'll become, appointed as senior special assistant to the then governor of Lagos State. So talking about political projects, what projects would you say you assisted the governor to execute within that time frame, and what was the impact that was recorded in that time?
One thing that was really important during that time is that we didn't actually have a commissioner of education. The then deputy governor also led the affairs of education. So we essentially had no commissioner of education. I really worked with ensuring quality in primary schools. So I assisted the then Director General of Education Quality Assurance thinking through policies that were particular to primary school students. I also focused on family and community engagement by having parent forums within the state. So we had quarterly parent forums that we had where we brought parents together. So for me, that was really important because sometimes we underestimate the importance of family and community engagement when it comes to quality education service delivery. Definitely education, we think about just the school, but there's so many moving parts that impact whether a fully prepared child is available and ready to learn, and also to figure out how we can best support them, irregardless of their circumstances at home.
All right. So today you're the Director General, Office of Education Quality Assurance in Lagos State. So what is your mandate here, and what programs and projects have you initiated? And I always like to know, what sort of impact have you recovered, thus far?
So, in my role as Director General, the Office of Education Quality Assurance, we ensure quality of all schools within the state, public and private, and we do that primarily through monitoring and evaluation of our schools within the state. We also are responsible for approving all private educational institutions within the state. It's been a very interesting time here because, as you know, COVID-19 started, and it has significantly influenced the type of work that we do, right? When schools are closed, how are you monitoring schools? How are you ensuring quality? So it's really required us to think outside of the box, or maybe even create a new box when it comes to those very pressing priorities that were really important for education service delivery. So we created initiatives based on three main points of reference. One is students and families that have a lot of access to technology. They have the website. Students that have minimal access to technology, they have the Telegram classes. And then students that have no access to technology, they have the learning app. So we wanted to first focus on the student intervention specifically and to address learning loss that may have occurred. So right now we have those three main tiers, and we've done distribution at this point for learning packs. The learning packs are about maybe 180 pages, and we realized that we obviously cannot have a learning pack for every single class. It would be a logistical disaster. But that although it's old school to have paper-based, for some students that's all they will have. So, the learning pack is made up of English, math, STEM, physical education activities, and it's also broken in to tiers, primary 1 to 3, primary 4 to 6, JS and SS. So that at a time, if I'm in primary 3, for instance, and I have the primary 1 to 3 pack, I can do some review on primary 1 and primary 2 before getting to primary 3. Likewise, children that may be a little ahead can move up within the same pack. So this was a really big deal for us to do that, and we've distributed 4,000, and we're looking to distribute another 4,000 to low-cost private schools. We focused on areas that are densely populated and students that don't have any access. So areas like Makoto, for instance, we focused our efforts there for private schools, because as we know, in Lagos State, not all private schools are equal. So that's basically where we are with Lagos Learning Together. Another thing that we did was the Forward to School initiative. When schools were closed and we were preparing, like the rest of the world, to begin school again, we really wanted to ensure that schools really knew what the expectation of them was, and that teachers were carried along. So we had the guidelines that federal government had released for the reopening of schools, and we created a course, a 1-hour course online that had an assessment, and that also has a certificate that will be generated, so that every single teacher in the state can say that they have gone through this 1-hour training course on what the expectation is for when they eventually go back to school or they're in school.
It's amazing. Yeah. So, private firms and organizations and businesses have unique challenges, but I really believe that being in public service has its own, unique challenges.
Yeah.
What would they be?
Well, one would be talent, right? Because unlike a private organization, you can't always pick and choose the talent that comes to you. right? Everyone is a civil servant and they can be posted to you. So the good thing is that you always have talent. The challenge there is, how do you work from a point of reference where you may not have information about the level of that person's talent? And then how do you support them so that they can contribute to the larger team vision while here, even though they've been posted to you? You know, a regular job, you apply for the job, and if they like you, if they feel you're a good fit, they hire you. Civil service, you basically inherit your talent. So how can you use that as a strength, right? Because we have the numbers, right? So how do we use that as an advantage where, you know, you get the buy-in of your staff to help execute your vision, not just for the time that you're here, for the time that you're here.
That's really great.
Yeah.
So tell me, it seems like you really had a very successful, career, like from school all the way to work.
That's what I revealed, huh?
Yeah, it's been so smooth. But tell me, have you recorded any feelings or failures, in the course of building this career?
Absolutely. When I was working with the New York City Department of Education as a senior manager for the Office of Teacher Effectiveness, it was very demanding. And I was a mother, right? I had very young children. I think my daughters were 1 and 3 at the time. And no one else in my office had children. No one else was married. So it was a huge challenge for me to be in a space that was unfamiliar with children, right? Because although I had lived there, I lived there when I was younger and I lived there without a family. So it was very challenging for me to balance a family life and work life in a very different environment where there's no support. Also recognizing the importance of external support systems, right? If you are a mother, if you're a wife, all these different roles that we often juggle together, it's really important to think through your existing support systems. And if you don't have those support systems, trying to figure out how you can get them or how you can leverage your existing systems to ensure that that part of your life doesn't suffer and that it can thrive in addition to the work that you're doing.
Abiola's honors include Golden Key International Honor Society, Harvard Women in Public Policy Program, and Education Pioneers Graduate School Fellowship Program. She's also a board member, AIFA Reading Society.
All right, so you've moved way beyond failing to receiving several accolades and awards, and recognitions and honors. Tell me, what are these accolades, awards, and recognitions? What do they truly mean to you?
It's nice to be recognized, right? For your work and your commitment, but I think for me, I haven't achieved yet. Although it's great to know that someone sees what you're doing, I think it's even more important to use it as feedback as to where you are than to see it as I've arrived. So for me, I'm hoping that my true accolades are still coming.
Amen. So how would you describe your leadership style?
I would say in many ways, I'm not a micromanager. But in order to not be a micromanager in a space where you can't always trust the quality of your talent requires a bit of balance. So I would say that I'm able to recognize those that are ready for the next level. I give responsibility. I delegate well. I give responsibility, and I give people opportunities to prove themselves and to show leadership in their own way. I also try to recognize what people's strengths are. So if I have someone that's in a certain department and it's not working, I try to figure out what they're good at, and if either I can place them somewhere else, or if I can create an entire new project for them to thrive in.
Okay. So what would you say are those key skill sets that a leader in an organization needs to acquire or naturally just possess in managing people?
I think flexibility. So not flexible in your vision, but flexible in how you get to your destination. So being willing to quickly say, this is not working, let's do something else. This is working, let's scale. So you can't be completely married to your way of doing things before you got in. So being able to constantly have a system where you're getting a pulse for where things are, that's important. I think being kind is really important. I think being kind is really important. Not being a pushover, but finding out, how people's families are doing.
Abiola's resume may read like that of a veteran, but she's only just getting started. I'd like to know how she balances work with the other flight crew.
Alright, so I have a few quick fire questions for you. What do you like to eat?
Amala.
How would you describe your style?
Simple and polished.
Your favorite brands to wear?
Lady Maker. Outside of Nigeria, Louis Vuitton.
Okay. What CEOs do you currently look up to?
Abiola Seriki-Ayeni, former Minister of Education in Nigeria, and also current Governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Olushola Sanwo.
Amazing. What's your favorite car to drive?
Ferrari.
Your favorite travel destination?
Paris.
Your favorite book of all time?
All the Places You'll Go by Dr. Seuss.
And what book are you reading right now?
Anything I'm picking up is always just research, about education and stuff. So I read a lot of McKinsey articles.
Lastly, I would like to know, what makes you happy?
My family.
Thank you for coming on Under 40 CEOs. Abiola.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Abiola Seriki-Ayeni, and you too can be an under 40 CEO.